What's up, guys? We're back with another episode of $1 Million Builds. Check it out, right? We got forms for foundation set. So we're starting to go, as they say, vertical in building our house here. We've had a few struggles though, a few challenges. No surprise, you build a house like this, you build any house, you have struggles, challenges, issues. But as I mentioned before, we didn't know where we wanted to set the house on the lot. The farther we set the house back, the more dirt we have to haul off. Well, we also have to build more retaining walls. So as we pan over here, you'll see we got 2 retaining walls. And then above that is where we have basically the back part of the lot, where we want to preserve that so that somebody can put a sport court, they can put a detached garage, they can put a guest house. And so the farther we push the house back, the less room they have back there to do those things. So we decided this is the best spot to put the house. Well, with that comes a few additional challenges. The first is we had to decide to do 2 retaining walls versus 1, which we talked about in last week's show. The walls turned out awesome. They look good once they get landscaped up. We got stairs you can see that go straight up there, so you'll have an access point. You've got a sufficient sized backyard here so they can play in it, they can do stuff. It's very functional, which is one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we had. But now as we start to set forms, you can see here, they've got the rebar in here, we've got the foundation vents set. Now that we're starting to set these forms, the challenge is where the grade's at in the lot. And when I say where the grade's at, what I mean is basically how tall the house is in certain parts of the lot. And so back here, it's fine, right? We dug out back here. We set the house at this point on the lot so that we have a sufficient sized backyard, so that we have 2 retaining walls, so that we have the back of the lot that can be used for something else. Well, by only moving it back this far, we then have some issues up front. And the issues up front are height of the future foundation wall on the garage, because it's an L-shaped plan. Here's the front of the house, which is right here on my chest, and then it's an L-shaped plan that goes out from here. That's a 4-car garage, and that 4-car garage goes farther and farther out, but as it does that, the lot tapers down. And so as that happens, that wall up here on the foundation on the front of the garage has to get taller and taller. So what we discovered once we started setting forms is that our grades were a little bit off, and so we ended up having about a 2-foot taller foundation wall on the end of the garage over here that we'll go look at than we'd planned on. Part of the reason is because of where we set the house and the way we did the retaining wall. So it all is kind of like a domino effect. It's a little bit convoluted and difficult to understand, but basically what you want to take from it is if you have a sloped lot, if you set the house on the lot, depending on where you set it, you're gonna have high points and low points in your foundation. So we got a high point here in the front corner, so let's go take a look at it and I'll tell you guys how we're gonna deal with the grade. We're kind of walking from, that's the back living room, great room area. We're in our future kitchen right here. We'll have our backsplash windows to look out over here, kind of cruise around over here. We're gonna have a wine room, it'll be right here. And we keep coming right here. We're gonna have a powder bath, and then we start to head into the mudroom, and then the 4-car garage, which this is basically the L part of the house that I talked about before, where it goes all the way out. And you can see that massive wall down there. I'll go stand by it so you guys can see actually how tall it is. The Great Wall of Dunthorpe, we'll call it. This is the front corner of the garage. We basically ended up having between a 7 and 8 foot wall here because of where we set the house on the lot. Now, where I'm standing right here, this is gonna get filled in with gravel. So we're gonna raise the grade up to probably here with gravel, which number one, that's very costly because you gotta bring in a lot of gravel, you gotta compact it, you bring in bigger stuff on the bottom, smaller stuff on the top, you compact it down, you have to have geotechs come out, make sure it's compacted properly, then you pour your garage slab on top of it. This here though, because this wall is so tall, we had to have it engineered specifically for the height. So it was a revision we had to basically give to the city. They had to okay the engineering, and so they put in additional supports and rebar, you can see there, to make sure that the wall is structurally sound. So this is a revision that we're waiting on. As soon as we get that approval for the revision, then we can actually pour, which we're gonna do, I think, Thursday of this week. But the challenge here is that it's so tall, we'll bring it up inside, it'll feel normal in here, but on the other side of the wall, on the front of the lot, is where we have some issues because we don't want it to look so ungodly tall that it stands out like a sore thumb. So now we've got to deal with some stuff on the outside to make it look normal once the finished product is done. So let's go take a look on the other side and I'll show you what I mean. All right, so as you can see here, here's the back side of the wall, right? Well, this is our tree protection fencing, which I've complained about a lot because we have to make sure that our tree protection fencing is right. I'll hop over here, make it easier. And so this tree is gonna go, first one, because it's dead. These other three, they're alive. This one's probably the best, it's an alder. These two are kind of ragtag, ratty trees. But the problem is that, see how tall this wall is here, right? Well, we're gonna frame on top of it, so you're gonna get a big tall garage on top of it. And so if we had a huge foundation wall and then a big garage on top of it, it's gonna look really funny. So essentially what that means is that the tree huggers of Portland are probably gonna hate me because I'm gonna have to cut some more trees. But we gotta cut these 3 trees here, or these 3 live trees, and get rid of this one dead one here, so that way we can take the big piles of dirt behind us here and grade it out. So we can grade it up to here, so it essentially looks like a normal size front of the house, because we've got enough distance between the foundation wall and the street that we can grade it. And if we grade it properly, then it'll look totally normal, and it'll actually bring a berm up towards the street, which will provide more privacy. So at the end of the day, it's about creating the best finished product that we can, and grading this part properly is a big part of that. It's a big, we'll call it value hinge on the finished product. So to kind of summarize, depending on where you set it on a sloped lot, or the house, it causes problems with grading in certain parts. This is our problem with the grading. So to solve that, you're gonna have to take out a couple more trees, well, 3 more trees, 1 dead tree, and then we're gonna have to grade up here so that it looks normal and it just feels good. Because we also don't want behind us here, you know, a big drop off where our driveway is, because that wouldn't be safe and that would be goofy as well. So again, at the end of the day, it's about creating the most marketable, functional house that you can. Sometimes trees gotta go. So there's our foundation wall. A little different perspective on what I was showing you guys before. These are our utilities that we're bringing in. So we've got underground power, and then we've got gas. So we're running them in the same trench here, and they wrap around. And of course, we're putting our gas meter on the back of the garage. I hate it when people put their gas meter and their electrical meter on the front of a house. You just don't need to. You gotta think it out and really try and hide those things so they're not an eyesore for the house, especially on a house at this price point. So we're taking the gas and the power, putting it behind the garage. That way it's hidden, but you can see the trenches here, and you can also see the different perspective on the great wall of the garage here that we've got to grade out all the way to this point here so it feels normal. All right, guys, that's where we've gotten in the past week or so. We'll be back next week, week after, with some actual foundation, probably some initial framing, and some initial HVAC plumbing work as well. So see you guys on the next one.